Okay, welcome to my first video for this channel. It's called The Tao of Wellbeing, where I want to share the good, bad, and the ugly of being chronically ill and anything that might be able to do to help others and also to help myself as I reflect on it, to deal with chronic illness and more generally well-being in its broader sense. So obviously physical health is a massive component, but then so is emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, etc. So I've got, quite a wide remit here. But I also just want to be like really upfront about, just how fucking hard it can be, for example, but also some of the joys that come with it, some of the, the blessings, um, and just keep it real, basically. That's my plan, to keep it real and see where this thing goes, right? So today I had okay, where to start with this? I had a doctor's appointment yesterday and it was really fucking stressful. It was really interesting because I saw two student doctors. I went into the room and there were two student doctors there, and they spent loads of time listening to me. Made me feel cared for. Made me feel that I was onto something. And then at the last 5 minutes of like a 40-minute to an hour long appointment, the real doctor came in, and 5 minutes of her time, and I left that room feeling absolutely fucking terrible. Um, and the main reason was she'd never seen me before. I've got a chronic illness that I've had for 2 years. In my local GP surgery, I see a different doctor every time. I'm not exaggerating. There might have been a couple of occasions where there's been the same doctor, not necessarily sequentially, but maybe I've seen the same doctor twice on a couple of occasions out of 20 to 30 appointments. So there's no continuity, and there's no way, as far as I'm concerned, that a doctor can do their job with a complex, long-term condition without some continuity, rather than just getting the notes off the screen and then going in. And then what this woman did that made me so fucking furious, and I'm still reading from it. She First of all, she said, "We don't know what's wrong with you." And I thought, actually, that's great. At least then I know that I'm not going to put any store by what the mainstream can do with this condition. Um, then she undid that by saying, all of your symptoms are caused by stress. Um, so let me just backtrack a little bit. That's not true because I've got brain lesions that showed up on an MRI and I may have MS. The neurologist thinks that it might be migraine related, although that doesn't really ring true when I do a lot of my own kind of research. It's like, well, migraines don't have the really bad headache. Got lots of horrible symptoms, but I don't have the really bad headache that goes with migraines generally, but that doesn't necessarily rule it out. Point is, we don't know. And I'm going to get another MRI in April, and then they'll see if the lesions have kind of spread to make it more likely that I've got MS. But it was contradictory. She said, we don't know what it is, which is great and honest. Then she said, your symptoms are due to stress. Then when I said, I don't agree, I've got quite a relaxed lifestyle. I'm doing all this kind of qigong and supporting myself with like diet and walking in the woods and when I can. And then she had the audacity, and I'm still quite shocked by it, to say, I'm the expert. These symptoms are caused by stress. And to me, it's just like, to me, that little snapshot of what's going on with medicine and doctors. And it's like, obviously, it's a single case. I can't infer that much about it, but I don't think I'm wrong in thinking that is pretty indicative of a system that is completely fucked. Completely fucked. Seriously. That woman didn't know me from Adam. She'd been in the room with me for 3 minutes or something. She presumed to know my inner world better than I do to pronounce that my symptoms were caused by stress. It's really clear that they're not. I mean, I've got this whole long list of symptoms, and some of them, it's like they're pretty out there. You wouldn't expect. I mean, what made it difficult is there was some consensus, some conversation that had been had around how emotional influences, emotional factors can actually precipitate illness. And I don't have any disagreement with that whatsoever. I've been reading this book, When the Body Says No, or listening to it, When the Body Says No, that makes a very strong case for how a lot of illnesses are precipitated by stress and childhood trauma and that kind of stuff. But that's very different from saying all your symptoms are caused by stress. And then completely invalidating the patient, completely disregarding their point of view. I did my best. The students were in the room, and hopefully, maybe what this was about is that these students saw that there is this potential problem with like power dynamics in the GPs, whatever you call it, surgery office, whatever. And I had a really good conversation with one of them. While one of them was out of the room, I had a really long conversation with this Indian lad, medical student, really interesting about the importance of the relationship with the doctor and that kind of stuff, and continuity of care, and systemic problems with presumption, all this kind of stuff. But I just think it's really important to be aware of this, because if you go in there with a complex chronic condition expecting to be helped, it's quite possible you're going to come out feeling a lot worse than when you went in, and maybe feeling upset and angry and very stressed, ironically. Certainly been my experience. And it's not the only time this has happened. I mean, out of these 20 or 30 appointments in the past, 2 years or whatever it is, I've very rarely, I think there's been one doctor that just managed to show some compassion, some care, and the honesty to say, we don't know what it is. I understand it, debilitating, massive impact on your life, kind of just express some care and empathy around that. Um, I'm not saying necessarily the individual doctors are like cruel and callous. I do think they are dangerously presumptuous and complacent, which is a different matter. I also think they rushed off their feet. So, if it's not something that's going to respond immediately to, some kind of pharmacological intervention, then really there's nothing they can do. But rather than having the humility or prescribing something like, go and see the local massage therapist, who's fucking brilliant, by the way, she does Indian head massage, and she's identified some really chronic tension in my jaw that started to free up. And, there's some positive stuff that can be done outside of GP surgery. And diet obviously is important, all the qigong that I do, and counseling, and all, there's so much that can be done which could be prescribed by doctors, but it's not. And I just think maybe I'm not quite sure what my point is with this, other than just kind of getting things moving with this channel, but just to kind of maybe modify our expectations. Maybe you don't have better expectations anyway, which is probably wise, but of what the GPs can do for you when it comes to chronic conditions, or maybe I would say mental health, from my own experience and stories I've heard as well. Mental health, chronic conditions, things that don't respond immediately to, or don't respond at all to, pharmacological solutions. It's possible that going down the mainstream avenue is actually not only going to not help, but it might actually make things a lot worse, because there's this kind of expectation, this belief that I still haven't let go of. And I think my amygdala, my kind of subconscious, is kind of has this sense that woman who didn't see me, I even started to write a poem, the medicine woman does not see me, she in some way is representing the powers of life and death on some level for my amygdala, because that is the culture we live in, where the NHS is kind of like our medical support system, and she is a representative who is manifesting a systemic flaw in the system. The systemic flaw being, first of all, we don't deal with chronic illness well, and B, we have a disgustingly complacent, arrogant, disempowering attitude towards our patients in these conditions, in my opinion. So that expectation, I need to just lay that one to rest. It's like, okay, certain things they can do. I'm glad they're going to do another MRI in April. They're going to see if these lesions in my brain have spread. I really hope they haven't. But I might get some answers then. But yeah, this is my first video on this channel. You get an idea of my vibe, where I'm coming from. Whether you might want to subscribe, you might be my first subscriber. I haven't got a welcome gift for you if you are, but thanks if you do, and please like this video because it helps the YouTube algorithm to get me seen, etc., etc. And just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm going with this, like I say, I'm not just going to be ranting. Sometimes I might rant and it might just be really raw, but I also want to share some of the insight, some of the wisdom, some of the practices, some of the learning, maybe even talk to other people. I don't actually know where it's going. And just another thing I really think is important to mention is this idea of an invisible illness. So here I am, quite dynamic, right? You're looking at me, he's energetic, he's gesticulating, he's got some passion in his voice. It's really easy not to understand that with chronic illness, what you see is not necessarily representative of what the person is going through. There might be times this same day that I'm recording where I can't get out of bed, where I can't pick up a teacup, or where I'm overwhelmed by grief or fear. It's a big thing, and I want to kind of help. I want to express myself around that to get some understanding, to be seen, but also maybe so that other people that are going through something similar also maybe get some more understanding. So that just to kind of make people aware of what chronic illness involves, and to see what can be done about it, and if anything that relates to chronic illness can also help people that aren't in that boat, but also could benefit from some of the stuff that helps people with a condition like mine. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.